It begins with a flicker of candlelight. A jeweled crown rests upon crimson velvet, its centerpiece burning brighter than the flames that dance around it. A golden diamond, unlike any other the world has ever known. Not pale, not colorless, but a rich, honeyed glow, as if a piece of sunlight itself had been stolen and trapped in stone. It weighed 137 carats. It shimmered with the brilliance of an empire. And then, like a phantom, it vanished. The Florentine diamond was more than a jewel. It was a declaration of supremacy, a weapon of prestige, a silent witness to the ambitions of men who ruled and men who fell. It gleamed in the courts of Florence, where the Medici family built a dynasty of wealth and cunning. It caught the covetous eye of Napoleon, who believed no empire was complete without the shimmer of stolen power. It lay hidden in the vaults of Vienna, as Austria's monarchy teetered on the edge of collapse. For centuries, it was passed like a torch of destiny, carried by those who thought its brilliance would outlive their fragile reigns. But brilliance can be deceiving. History has a way of swallowing its treasures whole. After the First World War, the empire shattered, its rulers cast into exile. The Florentine diamond vanished from sight. Some say it was smuggled into Switzerland, recut into anonymous fragments that glitter on fingers today with no hint of their origin. Others whisper it remains locked in a hidden vault, too dangerous to reveal, too priceless to claim. And still others insist it was simply lost, destroyed, discarded, or betrayed by those meant to protect it. What greater irony could history deliver? That one of the most magnificent gems ever mined, adored by kings and emperors, could be erased from the world as if it had never existed. The Florentine diamond, the pride of courts, the envy of nations, reduced to silence and speculation. And the truth, the real truth of its fate, has never been found. And yet, despite centuries of blood, ambition, and obsession poured into its golden glow, no one knows where it is now. If the thought of a jewel vanishing from the pages of history has already pulled you in, trust me, this is only the beginning. Make sure you're subscribed, because this mystery only gets darker. Long before the Florentine diamond dazzled the eyes of kings and conquerors, it was nothing more than a hidden ember in the earth, a secret buried beneath the unforgiving soil of India's Golconda mines. These lands were no ordinary fields of stone. They were the cradle of legends. From this very earth came the Koh-i-Noor, the Hope Diamond, the Great Mogul. And within that same furnace of pressure and time, the Florentine diamond was born. It is said that when the stone was first unearthed, it looked almost otherworldly, an uncut crystal glowing faintly with a golden hue as if kissed by sunlight. To the miners who toiled in sweat and dust, this was no mere gem. It was a divine fragment. They believed such stones were not found but destined, chosen by the gods to alter the fate of men. And they were right. For this rough crystal, once cut and polished, would one day ignite centuries of ambition, greed, and betrayal. The diamond's first great transformation came in the hands of master cutters, who shaped it into a double rose cut, a form so intricate it seemed to capture and multiply light with every angle. Unlike the cold brilliance of colorless diamonds, the Florentine radiated warmth, a honey-gold glow soft yet commanding. It was not just beautiful, it was hypnotic. European travelers described it as a sun trapped in stone, a jewel that seemed alive, pulsing with its own quiet fire. It was in Florence that the stone took its name, entering the treasures of the Medici family. Here, amidst Renaissance splendor, the diamond became more than an ornament. It was a symbol of power. The Medici understood the language of spectacle, how art, wealth, and jewels could command loyalty, instill awe, and terrify rivals. When the Florentine was displayed, it was never simply to impress. It was to remind all who gazed upon it that Florence was no ordinary city, and the Medici were no ordinary rulers. And yet behind the glow of its golden facets, a darker truth shimmered. For every jewel that rose to crown a dynasty, history whispered the same warning: what shines brightest casts the darkest shadows. The Florentine diamond was no exception. Its brilliance would illuminate halls of triumph, yes, but it would also witness betrayal, exile, and ruin. In the heart of Renaissance Florence, the Florentine diamond did not simply shine, it presided. It glittered in candle-lit chambers, where plots were whispered over goblets of wine, and in grand ceremonies, where the Medici family displayed their supremacy as if ordained by heaven itself. To the Medici, the diamond was more than an heirloom. It was a declaration. Florence was not just a city of artists and thinkers, but a seat of dynastic power. And yet, for all its brilliance, the jewel would come to embody something darker, a curse that seemed to trail the family through every triumph and tragedy. The Medici dynasty was born in opulence but haunted by betrayal. One moment, the diamond crowned celebrations of power, placed on velvet beside portraits of dukes and duchesses, dazzling guests with its golden fire. The next, it bore silent witness to blood on marble floors. Tales of poisonings at banquets, daggers in the dark, and exiles decreed by papal rivals surrounded the family like a storm. The Florentine diamond remained ever present, as if it absorbed each act of treachery into its glowing heart. Consider the fate of Duke Alessandro de' Medici, murdered by his own cousin in a night of calculated betrayal, or the downfall of Cosimo III, whose reign was marked by decay and decline. Each tragedy deepened the sense that the diamond, for all its beauty, carried an unseen weight, a golden reminder that the Medici name, no matter how radiant, was tethered to misfortune. Whispers grew. The jewel itself was cursed. Servants spoke of its unsettling glow, as if it gleamed brightest in moments of despair. Courtiers muttered that the Medici's obsession with wealth and dominance had bound their fate to a stone that would never know peace. And perhaps, in some twisted irony, the curse lay not in the diamond itself, but in the choices it inspired: greed, ambition, the hunger for eternal power. By the time the Medici bloodline faltered, leaving Florence vulnerable to foreign rulers, the Florentine diamond passed once again into new hands. Yet its reputation remained, a jewel touched by glory, trailed by ruin. The Medici had believed it would secure their immortality. Instead, it outlived them, gleaming silently as their dynasty dissolved into dust. And with the death of the Medici line, the Florentine diamond was free to move on. But its shadow, the whisper of curse and downfall, followed closely behind, waiting for its next host. By the dawn of the 19th century, Europe trembled beneath the boots of a man who believed destiny bent to his will, Napoleon Bonaparte. He was not born into royalty, but he understood its language: spectacle, symbols, and the glitter of power made tangible. And among all treasures whispered about in Europe, one in particular caught his imagination: the Florentine diamond. To Napoleon, it was not simply a jewel. It was a prize that could crown his empire and prove that he, too, was chosen by history. When Napoleon's army swept through Italy, toppling centuries of dynasties and humiliating old powers, the Florentine diamond was among the spoils he set his eyes upon. Imagine him standing before it for the first time, a general turned emperor, staring into a gem that had outlasted kings, popes, and the most cunning dynasty of the Renaissance. Its golden fire reflected in his ambition. Here was not just wealth, but legitimacy, compressed into a single dazzling object. The diamond became entangled with his rise, as though he sought to reframe history itself. If the Medici had once used it to anchor their dynasty, Napoleon intended to wield it as proof that his rule was inevitable. To hold the Florentine was to command continuity, to insert himself into a lineage of rulers whose empires were written in stone and jewel. And yet the irony of Napoleon's pursuit was as sharp as his hunger. For though he could conquer nations and crown himself Emperor of the French, he could not hold onto permanence. The Florentine diamond, much like Europe itself, slipped from his grip. When his empire collapsed after Waterloo, the great jewel returned not to French glory but to Habsburg vaults in Vienna. The symbolism could not have been more poetic. Napoleon's meteoric rise ended in exile on a distant island, stripped of his titles, stripped of his empire. The Florentine, untouchable and enduring, returned to the house of monarchs, as if mocking the man who had tried to bend eternity to his will. Even emperors, it seemed, could not possess forever. And in Vienna, behind locked doors and gilded halls, the diamond once again became the pride of a dynasty, this time the Austrians. But Europe itself was rumbling, and the days of empires built on stone and steel were numbered. In Vienna, the Florentine diamond found its most secure home, or so it seemed. Behind the iron doors of the Hofburg Palace treasury, it lay nestled among the crown jewels of the Habsburg dynasty, its golden glow adding weight to the empire's image of eternal grandeur. To the Austrians, the Florentine was not merely a gem. It was proof that their empire stood shoulder to shoulder with the greatest kingdoms of Europe. Whenever the diamond was displayed at imperial ceremonies, the message was clear. The Habsburgs ruled not only by bloodline but by the very symbols of destiny itself. Imagine a coronation in Vienna, chandeliers blazing overhead, uniforms glittering with medals and silks rustling across the hall. There, gleaming beneath the candlelight, the Florentine radiated warmth in a sea of cold brilliance. Unlike the white shimmer of diamonds that dazzled but detached, this jewel seemed to pulse with a golden heartbeat. Courtiers and foreign dignitaries whispered in awe, seeing in it both history's legacy and the empire's promise of permanence. For a time, it seemed the Florentine had at last found a dynasty that would endure. But outside the palace walls, Europe was shifting. The 19th century was an age of revolutions, of nationalist movements tearing at imperial seams. The Austrians clung to their symbols, even as the ground beneath their feet grew unstable. The Florentine, hidden away when unrest flared, became a silent emblem of fragility. It was displayed to project confidence, yet its very presence betrayed the truth. A glittering jewel cannot hold back the tides of history. By the turn of the 20th century, Vienna was a city of contradictions. Cafes buzzed with new ideas, music halls erupted with genius, yet the empire itself sagged under the weight of old hierarchies. The Florentine diamond remained locked in the treasury, polished and perfect, while the world outside edged closer to catastrophe. And then, in 1914, catastrophe struck. The First World War consumed Europe in fire and steel. When the guns fell silent, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was no more. Its rulers dethroned, its monarchy dismantled, its palaces emptied. The Florentine diamond, once the pride of Vienna, a jewel meant to symbolize permanence, stood on the brink of vanishing forever. The year was 1918. The cannons of the Great War had gone silent, but the silence was not peace. It was the quiet of empires collapsing. Austria-Hungary, once a sprawling power, was reduced to fragments. Emperor Charles I, the last Habsburg monarch, was forced into exile, and with him went a train of possessions hastily gathered, personal effects, jewels, treasures that once proclaimed the might of a dynasty. Among them, whispered to be hidden carefully away, was the Florentine diamond. Picture the scene. Vienna, a city stripped of its crown. Soldiers return to shattered homes, revolutionaries fill the streets, and in secret chambers the royal family packs what they can carry. The Florentine, a diamond that had once been paraded before courts and dignitaries, is no longer displayed in splendor. It is wrapped, guarded, concealed, its golden glow hidden from the eyes of a nation tearing itself apart. It traveled not as a symbol of glory, but as contraband of survival. From this moment, the trail begins to blur. Some accounts claim the diamond was smuggled into Switzerland, tucked away in a bank vault as the Habsburgs fled into obscurity. Others insist it was stolen by a trusted aide, spirited away into private hands where it may have been sold or recut. A few even suggest it was seized by Allied forces, its fate covered in silence to avoid scandal. But none of these stories have ever been proven. The Florentine diamond had survived the Medici, Napoleon, and centuries of political storms, only to dissolve into rumor in the aftermath of Europe's bloodiest conflict. What once glittered as an eternal symbol now existed only as fragments of testimony, contradictory reports, and fading photographs. There is a haunting irony here. A jewel that weighed nearly 140 carats, that once crowned emperors and awed the world, slipped into disappearance as easily as smoke through fingers. Perhaps it was melted into fragments to erase its identity. Perhaps it still lies, untouched, in some forgotten chest. Or perhaps it was betrayed, exchanged in the chaos of a world too broken to care about beauty. The Florentine diamond, once the pride of kings, was gone, and history, for the first time in centuries, no longer knew where to look. When a treasure vanishes, silence does not follow, speculation does. In the century since the Florentine diamond disappeared into the shadows of history, its absence has birthed 1,000 theories, each one adding another layer of intrigue to its legend. Some sound plausible, others fantastical, yet all feed the same hunger: the need to believe that something so magnificent could not simply cease to exist. One of the most enduring theories is the Swiss vault. Supporters argue that when the Habsburgs fled into exile, they entrusted their most precious possessions to discreet Swiss bankers. In this version of events, the Florentine lies even now in a darkened vault, wrapped in linen, untouched for generations, waiting for a rightful heir who may never come. The idea appeals to reason. Switzerland, neutral and secretive, is a plausible guardian for a jewel too famous to be paraded openly. But there are darker whispers. Some claim the diamond was stolen not by enemies, but by those closest to the royal family. A servant, a guard, an aide, someone who saw opportunity in chaos. In this telling, the Florentine may have been smuggled across borders, quietly sold to a private collector who ensured its existence was erased. Perhaps it was cut into smaller stones, its golden fire scattered into rings and pendants adorning the hands of the unsuspecting. Imagine that, a stone once revered as the pride of empires, now unrecognizable, glittering anonymously at a dinner party. Others speak of wartime seizure. They argue Allied troops intercepted it during the Habsburgs' exile, and that governments, wary of scandal, buried the truth. Could the Florentine lie even now in a state treasury, its identity concealed, its brilliance hidden to prevent claims and controversy? And then there is the most chilling possibility of all, that the diamond was destroyed, recut so aggressively it lost its name, or damaged in transit, its once mythic glow reduced to fragments of forgotten stone. Each theory carries its own allure, its own echo of truth, but none offer proof. The Florentine diamond lingers like a ghost story whispered across generations. Could it still be out there, resting silently in plain sight, its golden gleam disguised, its history erased? Or has the world already walked past it, blind to the brilliance it once knew? A diamond is never just a stone. It is a mirror of power, of obsession, of the fragile ambitions of those who believe beauty can outlast mortality. The Florentine diamond, though lost to the physical world, continues to live in memory, myth, and longing. Its legacy is not confined to carats or cuts, but to the shadow it has cast on history itself. Unlike the Hope diamond, which dazzles behind museum glass, or the Koh-i-Noor locked in the crown of empire, the Florentine's power lies in absence. It is the jewel we cannot touch, cannot confirm, cannot claim. And paradoxically, that absence makes it greater. A visible treasure may impress, a vanished treasure haunts. The human mind clings more fiercely to what it cannot possess, and so the Florentine shines brighter in imagination than it ever did in reality. Its story is a reminder of impermanence. Dynasties once believed the diamond would anchor their names in eternity, that its golden glow would outlive revolutions and wars. Yet the Medici are gone, Napoleon's empire is dust, and the Habsburgs live only in memory. The stone survived them all, and then, it too, disappeared. Perhaps that is its cruelest lesson. Even beauty carved from the bones of the earth can be swallowed by time. And yet the Florentine is not forgotten. Scholars debate its fate, collectors fantasize about its recovery, and storytellers keep its legend alive. Every rumor of its survival, hidden in a vault, disguised on a ring, sleeping in the hands of a collector, rekindles fascination. For what is mystery, if not the promise that tomorrow may reveal what today conceals? Maybe that is the Florentine's true brilliance, Not the way it caught candlelight, but the way it now captures imagination. It forces us to ask why we chase treasures at all. Is it for wealth, for power, or for the illusion that some part of us might endure like a diamond beyond the reach of decay? The Florentine diamond may never be found, but in its very absence it endures, as a story, as a symbol, as a question that will outlast even us. Some stories end with a resolution, others end with silence. The tale of the Florentine diamond belongs to the latter. We began with a golden light, a jewel that once adorned kings and emperors, and we end with a void, a treasure swallowed by time, leaving only shadows of memory. And perhaps that is why this mystery lingers. Because deep down we know the diamond story is also ours. The struggle to hold onto beauty, the futility of power, the truth that nothing, no matter how brilliant, escapes the erosion of time. But what if the Florentine is still out there, resting quietly in a locked box, hidden in the vault of a discreet collector, or recut and unrecognizable, passing through the world in plain sight? That possibility keeps the story alive. It makes us wonder if tomorrow's news might carry a revelation that shakes history itself. So I'll leave you with this question. Is the Florentine diamond truly lost, or simply waiting to be seen again? If this journey through mystery and history stirred something in you, if you felt the weight of vanished empires, the chill of a missing crown jewel, and the haunting beauty of what may never return, then stay with us. Subscribe, like, share, and join the conversation, because there are countless more secrets, betrayals, and forgotten treasures buried in the pages of history. And together, we'll keep bringing them back into the light. The Florentine diamond may be gone, but the search for truth, for meaning, for wonder, that never disappears.